it can be very overwhelming to start a garden, and you have to start with the soil. You have to start with the foundation. It feels like a lot of companies put all these seeds in, around this so that these initiatives can grow or whatever. They see this vision, but they don't have a foundation that can sustain what they're trying to do. So it's like, what is your foundation made out of? If it's made out of poopy soil, then nothing's gonna grow. So yeah, the garden's a real theme over here. It's a real theme.
One of the hottest words in 2020 was diversity, and a lot of companies are scrambling to refresh their diversity program, or in some cases, bring it back. Not all companies are created equal, and sometimes it takes help from individuals in the companies to make these changes. So today we have Emily Race and Bianca Wilson from SafeSpace, co-founders of SafeSpace, who are going to talk about change agents and who they are and what they can do for you. Hello, Emily and Bianca.
Hi.
Hello.
How are the two of you today?
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was listening to you talk, and I was like, wow, I love this human. And I'm really grateful that y'all brought us on, and so keep supporting us in all the ways that you do. So I'm feeling really grateful.
The feeling is mutual. So I want to talk a little bit about SafeSpace at the start. So what is SafeSpace and how did it come about?
So it's interesting because I was thinking about this question, and at the time that Emily and I had thought about this and created it, there was and there probably still is a buzzword around safe space, and that just never landed for us. It just never really resonated. It wasn't a phrase that we used or felt comfortable using. That's really restrictive, and it also kind of connotates that this is a dangerous conversation. There's something inherently dangerous about bringing this conversation into different environments. And it's not to say that harm can't be had within these conversations, but to just avoid it and to kind of cater to that fragility piece, that was not what we were about. So when we talk about safe space, it's honestly saying what you need to say and being responsible about what you're saying, being responsible about the impact that you have on others, whether positive or negative. And also, how do you co-create a space together? How can you collectively create a space that works for everyone versus a safe space? Safe, to me at least, connotates it's like a restriction. And when you say stay, you kind of feel like an expansion. There's an expansiveness of what's possible when you work in conversation, in community, and transparency as well. So that's kind of my background on where safe space came from, but I'll let Em add on to that too.
No, I think you captured it perfectly. I love remembering how we came up with this name. I remember very clearly sitting in one of our living rooms and just really reflecting on what is missing in this space. And it was that ability to just say what you need to say.
Say it. I love it.
Just say it.
Just say
it. So even going back further, where were both of you when this came about, when this plan came that you needed this space to say?
I mean, we both have a different kind of journey getting there, but I will just highlight that we came together working in marketing and advertising at an ad agency, and we're actually the change agents within that company leading diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, I guess you would say, together along with a group of a few other people who were all self-elected and self-appointed. And so it was from that direct experience that over time we realized, there's a lot of support that people like us need. And it's not a rare thing for people to be in our shoes either.
When being approached to kind of take on this change agent journey, I was definitely afraid. I was overwhelmed. I didn't think that I could be one. I didn't. Also, maybe it's I didn't understand what maybe a change agent was. It seems like a bigger thing. I mean, it is a very big thing, but it seemed like I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the resources. I wasn't someone who knew all about diversity, and I felt like that's I needed to be a diversity expert. And then, through my journey with Safe Space, through my journey post Safe Space, through the journey of 2020, through the journey of 2021, I was able to, really take in all the things I've learned and realize that I can be a change agent. So you just said that you were the change agents at that agency at that time, before co-founding Safe Space. So what is a change agent?
Bianca.
Yeah, I have I feel like I have like a really broad view, but for this conversation and when we talk about it within Safe Space or we talk about it within diversity, equity, inclusion, um, it is someone who has a direct, it's not just that they have the ability to make positive shifts. To me, it's also that there's an emotional connection. There is something that they are strongly affiliated with it, and they want to make the difference, and they have the capacity to make a difference. So it's the action piece of wanting to see a vision and to bring it into fruition, and there's a piece of like, I'm not just doing this, like I'm actually strongly connected to it and I feel a deep passion around it.
I mean, the vision piece, I'm sure we'll get more into it, but that is a huge aspect. And I think our belief is that leadership doesn't look like something that's just at the top. Like that's a really outdated modality or way of viewing leadership. So a change agent inherently is a leader in their own way, whether they even recognize that for themselves or not, but they are out there creating change just by being who they are, by sharing and having the conversations that they're having. And that makes a difference.
Absolutely. But why now and why today? Why are these change agents so important?
Things haven't like, how do I just, things haven't been working. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying all these new things and we're trying workshops and trainings and all of those things are really necessary, but it's like something isn't moving forward. Like something isn't connecting. We need to start looking at different ways, incorporating like, the information that so many others before us have created, and incorporating that action and incorporating that vision. We would be remiss if we didn't listen to those who came before us. And there's just certain things that feel like they have been skipped over, and having like one person be responsible for diversity, equity, inclusion, or just even one group of people versus everyone seeing themselves as a change agent, that's when you start getting the collective vision. That's when you start getting collective action. And that's when you start getting accountability across the board. So it's not just like, we hired a diversity, equity, and inclusion director, we're good. It's like, is that really working for you? So the idea of the change agent isn't just still that there's one person. It's like everyone is a change agent. Everyone is responsible, everyone's accountable, and everyone has the capacity to make a difference. And it doesn't just pertain to like the one Black person in your company. Everyone is a change agent. So I do think it's shifting that mentality of it's an over there thing with that one person or that marginalized group, and seeing is that how can I see myself as a change agent no matter where I am in the company or no matter where I am in whatever environment or organization. So to me, it's a more inclusive lens of how to make a difference moving forward. Mm-hmm. And like Em said, shifting that dynamic of, okay, leadership is going to handle all of this. Or like, again, this one person is going to handle it. So how can we all have a say? Haha, you see what I did there? Have a say in this.
Yeah, I mean, the number of times we've heard and also have been guilty of saying, like, there's nothing we can do about this, or I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start. And so that's one of the major things we're trying to kind of have an anecdote for, which is there is actually something you can do, and that's just a lie or a false belief, and also a very disempowered way of thinking. I mean, that could come from actual modes of oppression too, right? It's not just, on the person, this is your fault for not seeing what you can do, but we really are trying to dismantle this idea of what power looks like and where it can come from.
Specifically for Safe Space, I understand that change agents, although I think was probably always a focus, but maybe not specifically just on them, and maybe a more holistic view of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So has there been a change or a pivot within Safe Space that's now focused more specifically to change agents?
Yeah, I'll jump in here and say that Bianca and I have been on our own journey of really constantly listening to what is needed in companies, but then also more and more so listening to ourselves and really what do our own bodies, our own intuition point to, and where are we kind of being directed and guided to focus. And for us, this is something we tell people we work with, right? You want to follow where the energy is going, where you feel like a natural pull towards something, that vision piece, versus where there's resistance and it's difficult and challenging and hard, because that just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So for us, we always felt this natural pull and desire and connection to support the change agents. It's a reflection of how we see ourselves. We've seen the most impact be made there. We've seen that the change agents are really thirsty for like this idea of a change agent. Those people are really thirsty for support, resources, just a space to be in community with one another. And so it just felt like that is the best place to put our energy and our resources and time, knowing that that can have a massive ripple effect on the rest of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts, B?
Yeah, you said something, I don't know how you phrased it, but this work isn't static. It's like just because you've tried something and maybe it worked, like it's always listening for what's needed now and now and now versus what you are projecting or trying to make something work from the past. And it feels like just even on a societal level, like these these foundations are crumbling and we keep trying to like make the thing work. And instead, like Em said, like, okay, what is actually needed now? And change agents and having things like what's sustainable. And obviously what we have been doing in the past isn't sustainable, or else we wouldn't still be having this conversation. So how do we build the sustainability? And that's where the shift in the change agents came from. It's like, that's when you create leaders and you empower people's leadership, then they go on and empower other people. So like that's the sustainability piece versus just like these intense one-time actions. And then what do we have after that? So there's a piece around sustainability. And I think that connects a lot to the change agents.
We have burnout and we have people leaving the company is what we have.
Burn out.
People is tired. They is tired.
The hottest word in 2020 was diversity, and the hottest word in 2021 is burnout, I think. That's my hot take right now. Print it, put it on a billboard. I said it. I'm going to copyright it.
I love it.
Putting this into real world perspective, what are change agents able to accomplish today? Do you have any success stories?
Yeah, we have some incredible people. Well, we have you. Here you are leading a conversation.
Yes.
And we've had some people at some rather large tech companies. What I think is really beautiful is, yes, focusing on the internal culture, but also how does that reverberate? How does that ripple effect out into the world? And so what we've seen is how some of these change agents, specifically, I'm talking about one, how she has been able to shift the mindsets of leadership. So now even where they were a company who's very tech driven, now they're looking at, okay, well, we're a company that can actually make a difference in the world. So now they're using their money to invest in Black banks, in Black businesses, it was just BIPOC businesses when that was not happening before. They were very much about, we're going to be doing this tech, we're investing in these types of companies. And now they're actually expanding into like, wait, we have the money, we have the resources, and we have vision. And that came from her having these, frankly, like difficult conversations, but having the resources, having the support and the coaching from our program to actually understand how do I honor my boundaries? How do I honor myself and still have these conversations that are going to make a difference? And now it's like, yes, the internal culture is shifting and that's still challenging, but then you can actually see it tangibly out in the world. And that to me is a huge part of it too, is like these companies might feel like they have a very specific goal and mission when really they have actually a lot of capacity to shift things. So that's been really exciting to see. And I know Em has some change agents that she's worked with specifically that are also doing some dope work.
Yeah, like the thought that comes to mind as you were sharing that, Bianca, is there's like the external structures that are shifting and then the internal structures that are shifting. So I think across the board, every change agent that we come across is in the process of building new support systems in their life, whether it's incorporating more engaged leadership, at the top level, that hierarchy level, or just their team, the other DE&I committee members, like formalizing kind of a way of working with one another, seeing who can own what and how does that engage their sphere of influence, what they're already doing at that company. But we also see that the internal structures are shifting where people are just getting the support they need to set the boundaries for themselves, like Bianca mentioned, or just like check in with their body and see how is my body feeling right now. So that's the type of thing that maybe companies aren't used to measuring as a success point, but it's something that we absolutely look to as a success point.
We're getting those building blocks. I think now it's like identifying those change agents, and then giving them that space and that changing, setting up their boundaries, which is super important. Earlier, we already kind of mentioned, who can be a change agent, and I believe Emily, you said like, anyone, everyone, everyone should be a change agent. Anyone can be a change agent. So now that we've identified those change agents and given them that space, what are the tools that a change agent would need?
The first thought that just came to me was this is emotional labor. It's emotional, Royce, like it can be taxing. Most people who are in this position, who are, when I say changing, I mean literally the one who is perhaps carrying more of the load of having these initiatives. Most of them aren't paid. Like most people are not, it's not their title, it's not their role, it's not their job. And they're doing it because they're either volunteering or, like Jody Ambury says, like being voluntold. So one of the resources I think is the most important is how are you yourself being resourced? Like, how are you able to take care of your own self and understand the boundaries that you have? And also, what is the vision, understanding your personal vision for what you want to get out of it, right? Like a lot of people, I think, do it out of obligation, right? Especially people of color. It's like, well, I'm a person of color. I feel like I have experience in this. They have lived experience, but like, do you have tools and all that stuff? And it's like just understanding what is your connection point to it. Are you actually doing this because you want to do it, or are you doing it because you feel like you have to and you're the only one? So I think clarifying your connection, your vision to it will also help you have sustainable action, as well as understanding what are your boundaries, right? Like again, you're not being paid for this. How do you honor your boundaries? Because then you can be more effective in what you're doing because you actually are coming from a full cup versus, like you said, 2021 buzzword, the burnout. So for me, one of the resources is the coaching piece. Like how do I create my own personal vision? How do I understand what I want to see done in this role or this position? And then how do I honor myself? How do I honor my own boundaries? So that's resource number one, is it has to start with the self first before going out into the world.
My first thought, especially thinking of tools, and maybe other people, or maybe it's just me, that what you just listed out weren't actually tangible tools, weren't things that a company can give to a person. Like you just listed out tools that live within you, and I believe you said that something before in the past, or at least when we've spoken, is it's that personal power, and that is your tool. That is your greatest tool. And I just love that we're talking about tools, but we're not actually talking about real physical tools or programs or applications, or it's your personal power.
Yes. Ashe.
That's the shift. That's the shift we want. And I would just add to what Bianca said, that's kind of like the foundation piece. That's like numero uno. But then from there, one thing that we then want to build on is then how do you create that in the environment around you so that the other people that you are coming into contact with are also coming from that place, that they're connected to their personal power, but you are actually a space where they get clear on what their commitment and vision is. So that's, from that place, then you start to weave together this collective vision as a company or as a team, which is often what's missing. We find like most companies, Bianca and I always joke that when you ask them what's not working, they have a whole long list of things. But when you ask them what the vision is, they literally just stare blankly. They have no idea what the vision is. So that's part of what our program is kind of training people, I guess you could say, to think of, is how can you be part of the person, part of the group creating that vision.
And adding on to that, like what aspects are in your control? I feel it's fair. What do you have to say about that line of just identifying for that change agent what you can and cannot change?
Yeah, I think what you actually are just saying it. It's understanding who and what is your sphere of influence, right? Like it's yes, you might have a passion over it, but if it's not your paid job, and let's say you're an engineer or you're, I don't know, a product manager or something like that, it's understanding what are your day to day, what areas do you touch on a day to day basis, and how can you have an impact there versus seeing this very overwhelming, like I have to do this, I have to be involved in hiring, I have to be involved in facilities, whatever the thing is. It's like, no, just what is your day to day and who are the people in your day to day, and just have it be a part of your natural process versus trying to take on everything, because white supremacy will have you out here burnt out and thinking you need to take on everything and then you do nothing. So it's like, how do you focus on like one, two, maybe three things, but like less is more in the situation, and going, if we had more people focusing on less things and just going deeper in those things, that would shift everything versus one person trying to do, all the things, or even a couple of people trying to do all the things. It's like, let's be focused about what our zone of genius is, go deeper there and see like some true impact there versus, spreading yourself thin and then having the burnout, and then, you lost one, you lost another one.
Yeah.
You said it, Bianca, of it's that little by little, that's how you make the change. And I realized that, that changing something was overwhelming, but because I thought about it at a bigger level, at a bigger scale,
Yeah.
and I thought about it like, oh, that's a lot. That's, how do I even do that? But then, as you say, little by little, you can make bits of change, which is, I think, super, super important.
Well
I
said.
hear a good garden metaphor in here, Bianca. Do you see one? We're big on garden metaphors.
A
Yes,
garden metaphor?
Yeah.
yes, I'm an early farmer. I'm in my beginning stages of farming. And we just use a lot of metaphors around, um, you know, honestly, working with the land and working with the plants, and it can be very overwhelming to start a garden, and you have to start with the soil, you have to start with the foundation. And I mean, I've been learning real quick that if you don't have a solid foundation in the soil, then your plants can't grow. If you have faulty, if your soil is poisoned or you don't have the right nutrients, like nothing can actually grow. And it feels like a lot of companies put all these seeds in, around this, so that these initiatives can grow or whatever. They see this vision, but they don't have a foundation that can sustain what they're trying to do. So it's like, put less seeds in and just focus on those seeds. And also, what is your foundation made out of? If it's made out of poopy soil, then then nothing's gonna grow. So yeah, the garden's a real theme over here. It's a real theme.
With that garden metaphor, and especially with a community garden, for that change agent, you're not alone. Hence that community portion and that foundation, I think, is definitely super important. So, what do you say about the company's role in this community garden? I think you touched on it a little bit with that yucky soil, and I feel that that's part. The company could have some support there in providing some healthy, rich, nourished soil.
I mean, what comes to mind for me is that, when I'm listening to plants, when I'm looking at my plants, let's just say, I have to listen to the plant. I have to say, like, do you need more sunlight? Do you need more water? Do you need a bigger pot? Like, what is needed? And that's a whole process of being in relationship with. So if a company's not actually being in relationship with its employees, and this company, by the way, is made of people. So if leadership or whoever's making these decisions, financial resource decisions, is not actually listening to the people that make up this company, then whatever you're doing may not actually be what's needed. So I would say start there.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that's great. Listening to the plants, aka listening to the people. And it is also, and inside of that, like you can also look at when you talk about the soil, and I realized like I had like literally toxic soil. It's looking at the practices and looking at the ways of operating that perhaps aren't actually healthy. The thing like that's looking really deeply at simple things like your pipeline. Like, that's such a buzzword, like the pipeline, but really, like, what is the pipeline? And looking at every stage of the company and seeing where there might be inequities just already built in there. And that takes time, and that also takes is the combination of listening to the plants or listening to the people. So it's the parallel job of like, let's look at what our foundation is made of in conjunction with listening to the people, and then that's when you start to create new soil, you start to create new plants, and then that's, you understand better how to nourish the garden.
Again, it's not just on the change agent. There's definitely support from around. I think definitely support from from peers, from leadership, from the company as a whole. In your experience, what other obstacles, if we haven't listed them or anything yet, what other obstacles do you think the change agents face, and what do you suggest for them to overcome those?
So there is something I do want to point out around identity work within this. So also, depending on your identity, you're going to face different challenges. A white bodied individual is going to have a different experience and different challenges and opportunities as a change agent than, let's say, a Black woman who's doing that. So some of the challenges might actually be some of your personal trauma, right? Like, if you have trauma in your body as a Black woman talking to a white male, then yes, having a conversation with your boss who happens to be a white male could be extremely challenging. And so understanding trauma as a part of this and understanding where your identity plays into this is a piece that I don't think gets talked about enough. Because we're like, in our brains and heads so much, like, just have the conversation. I'm like, well, if someone has had like some major trauma around having conversations with certain types of people, that's going to be triggered. So it's also understanding your personal experience and what you are bringing to the table, whether that's, I don't want to say positive or negative, but things that are going to move something forward, but also knowing your triggers. So challenges are trauma as well. So that was the first thing, because always coming from the self first. That's I'll leave that one there, and I'll let M say another one.
I'm so happy you brought that one up, because I think that's something we always keep coming back to, and being trauma informed, and how we can, just incorporate that, because I don't think so many companies are trauma aware, right? So that's something we personally are trying to infuse more into our conversations. But there's a lot of work to be done, and there's also a lot of expertise that's required, even beyond what I personally am capable of handling. So other than that, I feel like what goes really closely hand in hand are the things we mentioned around like setting boundaries, or actually being given the resources and being listened to get the support. So for example, if we connect with a change agent and they're like, yes, I want to work with you, this feels like a program that would be really supportive to me. Oftentimes they are met with obstacles of budget or resources. Oh, that doesn't fall within the policy. Oh, that's outside of your realm. We're hiring a diversity person in 6 months. Let's just wait for them. And so it's kind of, there's an internal conversation that I think needs to shift around really what support can look like. So we're always listening to that, and doing our best to coach those change agents and how to really stand for what they need. But like Bianca said, if the trauma pieces and the identity pieces infused in there, then there's only so much we can do with that.
And to me, hearing that, it brings back, we talked about the tools, right? And the tools are within, it's again, that idea of something tangible. And so even when I asked the question of what are those challenges that they can overcome, I didn't even think about those personal challenges. I thought about tangible, or those budgets and things like that. And again, bringing up that you could have your own personal challenges to overcome, and that's totally fair, and that's valid as well. So I thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't even think about it when I asked it. So that's super important.
Yeah, I think hit on a lot of the challenges of budget is a thing, and you also have to get real with yourself as a change agent, because yes, you can have those conversations, but at some point, if you can't force anyone to be somewhere where they're not. Also, you can create an opportunity for them. You can bring your ace game of communication. And if those people over there are still very committed to doing things how they know to do, then we're also like, well, burn yourself out about that. Don't push yourself beyond that. So there is a balance of what you are saying yes and no to, because there are opportunities to have conversations around budget, like you, and honoring that when you support a change agent's vision, you're also supporting a company's vision, because when you're supporting that, it's contributing to the larger vision. And I think there's a gap with that. And I think that's kind of the gap that we're trying to help not only change agents, but companies close around. It's not separate. This is not a separate conversation. You supporting them is literally you supporting yourself. And if the company is like not ready to be there yet, then they're not ready to be there yet. And then that's when the change agent needs to make a choice for them, an empowered choice around like, well, what do I want my role to be within this? Because I'm available for this and I'm not available for that. And I think that's the personal power piece.
Can you just say that line again? I think it's just very important, and I think we just need to hear it again. Just supporting the individual.
Yeah, supporting the individual is supporting yourself. It's actually, if you're thinking about like, what am I getting out of this? Like, you're getting everything out of it, because the minute that you say yes to them, you're saying yes to yourself and you're saying yes to your business. I'm very popular. Very popular.
Lines are calling.
Lines are lighting up.
They're hearing you. They're like, oh my gosh, genius, Booker right now.
So yeah, it's just, there's a collapsing. There's like a dissonance. Like, oh God, if we spend money over there, we're not going to, like, it's taking away something from something else, or it's taking away something from me, as opposed to seeing it as like, no, this is actually supporting the larger vision. So it's a value add. If we want to get real corporate with it, this is the value add, but it really is.
If there's like a graphics package involved in this, I want something to pop up on the side that says supporting the individual supports the company.
Yes.
There's something like I want to add to this. Is might feel a little radical because I used to work in talent development HR. So I feel like there can be a conflict of interest around this at times for whatever reason. But one thing Bianca and I had to really come to terms with ourselves is when we first started Safe Space, we were coming more from like, support the company, let's help the company, but it just never felt aligned with what we truly want to do, which was to help the change agent. And this idea that we're here to actually liberate, like to support the liberation of the individuals within a company. And in doing so, hopefully that will create the shift in the company. But if the company, it's a relationship. If the company can't be supportive of that liberation, if they're not happy to see that happen, and if they're not going to meet those individuals with the resources and the commitments and the accountability that's required, then those people will leave. Those people will be liberated and leave. And so it's kind of actually, it shifts the context where it's kind of putting the company on the spot to say, like, what are you going to do beyond just talking about this? And I think personally, I feel way better and more aligned with my values to come from that place versus trying to just keep helping the slave owner, so to speak, if we want to look at that comparison.
Yep.
I had to say it.
I had the same thought. I was like, the truth is that they might set themselves free, and that might look like leaving the company or choosing not to be a change agent. And we had to kind of let that go. It's like not about forcing someone to do that. It's about feeling alignment and feeling empowered in that position and in that choice. And if it's not a full body yes, then what are we really doing?
Definitely hear that, and I'm happy that there's spaces out there who are recognizing that pivot, and I'm curious. So, how's that journey been so far for you? That kind of shifting, that refocus from again that holistic diversity. There's a lot that goes under that diversity umbrella, and that diversity, equity, and inclusion umbrella, and with this pivot to specifically change agents, how's that journey been so far for Safe Space and that and where you're going with it?
I'll say that change is hard. We as humans don't like change. It's confronting, it's uncomfortable. As Emily and I said, it's itchy, like you just are itchy. And we resist it. And I also think to listen for the goodness in people, everyone wants to see a change. Everyone does want to see a difference being made, especially in all beings being free and happy and showing up as they can show up as they are. And that doesn't happen with like a one time, like we're going to train the whole company or we're going to have this one thing. And it doesn't just happen like that. And I think we all secretly deep down wish it could, but it doesn't. And so the shift, it's shifting mindsets as well, right? Like you have these companies and you have these ways of believing and thinking about how things should go. So it had to be a shift within us, but it's also like shifting the way people are thinking about this. So it is seeing the value in supporting these change agents versus what feels like an immediate gratification of doing, we're going to put this training on for the whole company. And that feels really good in the moment, right? Like everyone's like rah, rah, probably except for the Black people because they're like, no. But, does that really lend itself to the longer vision? And that's the piece that I think we're trying to shift is, yes, let's have these kind of communal one-time things, but like, what does it look like for you to think beyond now and the instant gratification now? Because instant gratification hasn't gotten us anywhere with this. And sometimes actually creates more harm and more problems. So it's the internal shift with us, but then the external shift out there as well. And sometimes some companies are ready for it and some companies aren't. And you just got to meet them where they're at. We're not here to try to force anyone to believe anything. It's everyone's on their own journey. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that everyone's like, absolutely, let's send all of our change agents to safe space and give them the support that they are looking for. But sometimes, like Bianca said, the step that they're actually in is just even identifying who the change agent is and doing that in a way that won't tokenize someone or voluntold, as Jody and Burry says. And some people are now actually, companies are investing in those change agents. So now we've noticed that there's a trend where the people we've been talking to are actually kind of at their max. Like I'm taking 3 trainings or I have all these ways of support. And then there's other companies where they have so many change agents, so to speak, like a whole team of 10 people. So now we're actually shifting our approach to meet them where they are, where, oh, we can support this whole group of people, not just the one person. So that's something we like to see. It's interesting how there is such a cyclical nature to this where you really have to adapt and meet people where they are.
And then something that you said earlier about instant gratification. I think that also just like it just hit me. I was like, oh yes, that's so true. And it's not fair to put instant gratification on something like this. I feel it's you're like you said, it's harmful. If you think that you're going to get an instant gratification or an instant change, you're not going to, and that I think is an important takeaway because it takes time, and that's okay, and that's fair. And also, especially for a change agent, if it's just one person, you just can't put that on them. So I think that's super important that you brought that up. So thank you.
On that piece, the instant gratification piece, one thing that we are encouraging companies to do and we facilitate is this idea of what completion looks like. So otherwise, you're on this constant uphill like marathon with no moment to pause and say, whoa, like what has been working, because that's human nature, I believe, for us to want to see some sort of accomplishment or success, which is maybe where that instant gratification comes from. And at the same time to say what's not working, because we're learning as we go. So like to get feedback from people in the company, from a diverse range of folks in the company to say, oh, this is not actually working. So we need to adjust and change course. So I just wanted to plug that in there, that it's really important that we also change the way that we think about change and allow space for it to be iterative and learn from what we're doing versus this like direct linear approach.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that because the word that keeps coming into my mind around this is what white supremacy and colonization looks like, right? Is the need for instant productivity, for instant gratification, for things to be wrapped up perfectly. And it's like, nah, this is messy. This takes time. It's spiralic. It's not some linear thing like you're going to do A plus B and then C happens. It's like we have to also shift. Like Em said, how are we even approaching this? And so to think about something like, all right, we have our plan and now like we have no idea. Okay, we have no idea. And so shifting that mindset of Em talks about like the growth mindset versus like this very static, like this is what we're going to do, and these are the ROI, these are the things that we're going to get out of it. It's not to say that we can't have vision and we can't have ways to measure it, but are we actually thinking about it in a way that's holistic versus like like it's not a business plan. I mean, business is part of it, but this we're talking about humans. Like we're talking about humanity. And so that requires a different level of thinking and being and feeling, and we just can't be colonized out here about it. And that's just the truth. So it's the mental shift too of how we're approaching it.
We talked about the tools, the support, all of that. So I kind of I want to do like a little, not role playing or any sorts, but I would love to kind of pretend that I'm a new change agent coming into this, and like what is the introductory course? Pretend I'm new. I don't know anything about it. Like what would you say to me from the get go? Like day one, Royce, this is what you're gonna do.
Well, I feel like the first thing I would ask is, why are you doing this? Like, why?
Yeah.
What's your why? And what's your
Uh,
vision?
my why and my vision. Okay, my why is because I'm definitely passionate about. I'm passionate. Actually, oh yeah, this is tricky. Here we go. Um, the why. For me, the why is I do want to see change in my company. And that, I think that's fair, and for a lot of reasons. I do want to see some more representation of me in more areas and all levels of my company. So that's my why. That's why I'm here, to be a change agent. And
Well,
that's my
that's beautiful.
I thank you. I think that doubles as my vision too. My vision is just to see more people like me, or see more variety of people who aren't like me.
And I'm sure Emily would do this too, but I personally would just be more interested. I would want to know more. I'm like, okay, well, why would that make a difference? Why would it make a difference for you to see more versions of yourself, or more people who, or you can see yourself in other people? Like, why does that matter to you? And you don't have to answer all of that, because I know that takes some critical
I'm
thinking.
not. Do we have that kind of time? I'm not sure.
Well, it's like you really want to create the big picture, like I think people stay right here about the why, but then you take it further and be like, and then you've created a whole future for them where like, oh my God, that's why I'm doing it. And then you just ask like, well, what are the gaps? Like what would have you feel supported in getting there? Or what has you not feel supported right now in getting there? And then seeing how our program, which is 3 months of full-time support, of one-on-one coaching and community and group coaching, like how does that support your vision? It might, and it might not. We're not attached one way or the other, but if it is something that would connect the dots for you in that bigger vision, then that's what there is to look at and have conversation about.
Yeah, I think even though that second question that you have, like it did start to, I can already see the breakdown of breaking it down by piece. So it's that, like, yeah, I have my vision and that's what I want to do, and then now it's like really getting into, okay, why is that vision important to you, and then those little steps to get there, and it's really just breaking it down to bite-sized pieces, I feel like.
And I'll say, when you have a bigger vision, that's when you can easily kind of enroll other people, right? Like when you have a vision that's so big, it's like people are, when you're talking to them, it feels like, I don't want to say are an easier yes, but they can then see themselves in that vision, versus when you have something that's like really small, there's not a lot of room for other people to contribute or be a part of it, versus when you have a really big one. And that's part of what happens in our course, is like really understanding what truly is the vision and how can you have other people support you in it. So it's not just you, yourself, and I, me, myself, and I trying to pull this whole thing along. So the vision piece is really important, especially when we're first getting to know a change agent.
And it helps us know how to support you, right? Like Bianca, you just did a beautiful job of modeling what you actually do in these initial calls. And then from the facilitation standpoint, once someone joins a program, it's going deeper with that. Like, how do you embody that commitment? And and where can we support you in remaining connected to that or allowing that to evolve and grow? Because there's like this whole culture of, oh, you should do this. And then from the white perspective, there's a lot of guilt and like kind of being forced to, or like, this is the right thing to do without that genuine personalized commitment. So that's missing, across the board. And I think that's why we spend so much time starting there.
Yeah. And since you both brought up the program and the facilitation, what's next for Safe Space, and how can people sign up? Where do they go? What should they do?
And you can head to our website, which is www.say-space.com, and there's a link on there to register. And we also meet people where they're at in terms of what it looks like to support their change agents. We understand that every company is different. And so, that can look like retainer, that can look like one-on-one coaching, exec coaching, that can look like a variety of things. But the purpose is really to support the change agents, whether that's one or it's a whole group of people. But the most upcoming thing is the March 9th course.
Yeah, and beyond that, so if people listening to this beyond March 9th, really, it's always starting with the conversation, much like Bianca demonstrated. We don't assume anything. We really want to understand what's important to this individual or this group, and then from there, meet you where you are with some offerings that could be supportive.
I only have one more question, and what should people take away from this? What's maybe one sentence or one word? What's the greatest takeaway?
There's something for me around the personal power piece, right? Like you have, yeah, like you have so much more power than you think. And it comes from tuning into you. And it comes from, again, bringing your body with you in the decisions that you make, and knowing that your personal power actually will create an environment around you where other people have personal power. And that's where the shift happens. So it really does start with you.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some, I like to find like little punny or like distinct ways. And I'm like, what's a punny way to say something about the power within? But then it turned cheesy. So I let Bianca say it better.
I'll do a cheesy one. I'm going to bring it back to build more community gardens.
Yes.
That's not cheesy. That's so hard for me.
Beautiful.